Okay, so we started Jubilee Fruits and Vegetables. That's the name of our farm here. We're a farm that's located in Mountain Lake. So we have about 20 acres located in the city of Mountain Lake, which makes for a unique kind of setting. We're having to work within city ordinances and that kind of thing. So we started Jubilee Fruits and Vegetables about 3 years ago, with the focus on CSA, Community Supported Agriculture. My husband Steve and I felt that that was something missing in this part of the state of Minnesota, southwest corner. There had been some others that are sort of working in that area, but not so strongly as a CSA. And we're also wanting to use organic procedures and manners on our farm place. And so that's completely something completely different than what's around us, because all around us when you drive this area it's all a monoculture, so it's either all corn or all beans. And just the other day, you know, planes are flying over spraying crops and doing what they need to do, and we're just this little piece of land in the middle of this huge agribusiness all around us trying to make a different statement. Anyway, so 3 years ago we started, and we started out fairly small. We had about 11 or so members, and they would come each week and pick up their share of the harvest, and it was quite nice. It was something I could manage. I work out of my kitchen sink. We don't have a processing area as yet, and that makes life a little challenging because the kitchen sink isn't quite large enough for all the things I need to pass through. So we started out with a summer season, and then went into a winter season. And then over the course of time, now at this point, we have 3 seasons. So we start in May and we go through the end of November. And how we're able to do this is that we have 2 movable high tunnels that are located on our area, just to the, I don't know if you can see them through the bushes behind me. And they're movable in that there's 7 plots that these high tunnels can move from plot to plot depending on the season. And so we're able to start our tomatoes, say, very early, and so that they're ready in a month earlier than your normal types of produce that you would have planted outdoors. And our cucumbers and peppers we have started in our high tunnels, and they're coming to the end of their season, and we get lots of them because it's, you know, several hundred plants growing there in that high tunnel. Anyway, so we started that, and this is the first year that we've had 3 seasons. So we decided to have a spring season, and we have a summer season, and we have a fall season. And folks sign up, pay ahead, pay us up front for that season, for that period of time. And then they come each week with their market box, and then we, as farmers, have a variety of produce there that they take their share of the harvest, and they fill their own market boxes. Yeah. And so this year, the new thing is our son has come to join us, and he is farming with us. He just came back from Bolivia, having worked there with organic farming and such. So we've done a lot of different things this year, thinking and working with him and all his ideas, as he's sort of trained in this area. So we've been looking more at, you know, the term Jubilee. You can take that all sorts of ways. Jubilee means a party. It means having a fiesta. It means enjoying what's set before you, the people, the creation, in terms of a jubilee. So if you look at our logo, you can see vegetables flying out of the word Jubilee. So it's sort of a fiesta, a party time, Jubilee. The other Jubilee kind of idea is that it's a biblical term, in the sense of a Jubilee year is a year of taking a break, that the land is at rest, that it isn't just pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed to produce as much as it can and get the biggest dollar and that kind of thing. That's an aspect that we're still working on, in that, you know, if you're needing something from May to November, and if you want to set land aside for, say, a Jubilee year, then you're needing to have enough land so that you can rotate around and have that much land in rest as you move around. So we're still working in that area. We're not, we haven't quite arrived there. But that's sort of the goal, is looking at just not having the same mental, you know, we need to make money, we need to be aware of that bottom line, but how are we stewards of the land that's been given us, that we are able to manage it in a wise manner. Yes. I think those are the only two things that for the name Jubilee. At this point we have about 30 to 40 members, and that isn't quite enough for in terms of a business, because this is a business now and we're needing to be aware of that. And my husband and I, we're volunteers, and so this isn't a business that one would is making a lot of money on. It's a real challenge in that department, and so that's the area that we're needing to get more efficient in what we do. It's sort of a balance, more efficient in what we do, but not having that drive of, okay, now we need to, you know, push this thing to its uttermost. And so it's sort of a fine line, and we're still trying to figure that out amongst us, because now that we're 3 farmers, that makes life a little more challenging, because we come at it from all our different perspectives. Our son also has encouraged us to think in terms of permaculture, and so, you know, in our front yard now, we're looking at, you know, why all these trees around us. You know, this is a major house, and we sit on a lot of acreage that isn't producing anything. It's just beauty, okay? So can beauty also be paired with something else that would be something in terms of food, sustenance, or other kinds of things? And so our front yard, we took down 3-4 major trees this year, and if you haven't visited here for a while, it's like, whoa! Our neighbors were all asking, what are you guys doing? You know, because folks are aware of we're right out front. And so they would stop by and ask, what in the world are you doing? And so we took up 3/4 of our front yard, which is pretty major, and put in a 3 Sisters garden on one side, and then we used Ugelkultur, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, where you chop the trees and you just lay them down, and you use the trunks and cover them with soil, and then you plant on top of that. So this is the first year for that. It's sort of an experiment, and I'm not real impressed quite yet, but it's just, the soil was just soil that we had back there, and we just piled it on top of the tree trunks, and it wasn't, you know, composted and nutrient rich or that kind of thing. And so the Brussels sprouts that are growing there look a little peaked at best, but it's our first year for that. And the idea there was, the other concept that they were trying to do, all sorts of concepts here, but we're trying to also think in terms of where is water coming from. This summer was an awful drought. It started a month before last year, and so that was most challenging. And so in terms of thinking to the future, where is our water going to come from? Currently we get all our water from the city, which is fine, but water that's been purified by the city, of course, has chlorine and other things that we're not really wanting to keep watering our plants with, because that only degrades the soil and what happens there. And so our front yard is, the idea is to try to capture as much water that falls on our land, to keep it here on our land, not to have it rushing down the street. Because again, we're in the city, and the concept of the city is storm sewers and quick take the water off the land and rush it out of here, because you know you don't want it sitting on your property. So that's a real mind switch to think of, well, no, now we want the water to sit here and percolate down through the soil. So our raised bed that's out there on top of the tree trunks is sort of like its arms, it's sort of in a curve like so, but facing the house, so that any water coming off stops there. So that's part of the concept that, you know, you don't necessarily notice as you come in the yard, but it's again, it's our first year working at it, so we're wanting to continue along that line. On the other side of the driveway is a huge area of, it all used to be beautiful green grass, okay, but grass doesn't produce anything. So covered it all up with some manure and wood chips and all, and in that area is going to go what we're hoping are like fruit trees and nut bushes and things. After the huge tree was cut down, now it opens it up for the sun, and it's on the north side of the house, and so we're having to be a little bit more aware of where does the sun, as it passes over, how does it fall on the land. And so we always have more discussions of how many more trees need to be cut down and so forth. And I'm a tree hugger. I plant trees. I don't like taking them down. And so I'm very careful of, when I look around, I go, well, I don't know that I want that tree down or this tree. And so it's like we go at it slowly. But yes, we are wanting to open up more space and make the land being able to produce, but also aware of beauty and how that all ties together, that it's still a place of both and that's not just we're wanting to put corn and beans everywhere. Yeah.
Sounds like this is a farm, a garden built on ideas.
Very much so.
Can you say a little bit about where those ideas came from, or what kind of conversations resulted in this farm?
Well, to start out with, this was my husband and I, and so we were wanting to make a difference, make a statement for folks in this part of the world. And so professionally I was a registered dietitian, and my husband is a medical doctor. And so we feel very strongly that folks, we aren't making the best choices for our health, for the creation that's around us, for our families, and a lot of that is based on food. And so we wanted to be able to, rather than just preaching the word and saying, you need to be eating better and exercising and whatever else comes down, just preaching it out the mouth, that to be able to show the way and trying to show, well, one could do something different with one's yard, so to speak, or one could try these certain vegetables. We grow vegetables that most folks will say, now Judy, you're going to have to give us some recipes for this because I have no idea what this is that you're putting in my market box. So for example, that might be Swiss chard, it might be fennel, it might be, what did we give out last week? Kale, collards. Southwest Minnesota, we're pretty much corn and beans and I don't know, a few other things. But so to have this variety of vegetables, it's like, wow, what do you do with fennel? Well, so we're all learning. I didn't grow up on fennel either, but that's a kind of vegetable that grows well here and gives diversity to, and there's no magic to it, but it's just something different that we can enjoy eating together. So the idea is, if I'm one saying, you need more fruits and vegetables in your diet, that's how I would preach as a dietitian. Well then, I go to the grocery store and what's there is there, and that's all that I get, and much of what is there comes from lands far, far away from here. So the idea is, well, what can we do right here that can extend the season, and can we eat locally and support locally and have that all in the same package somehow? And so that's sort of what we're trying to push. And it's not just local, we're also trying to be sustainable, which is, we're still using gas, we're still using diesel, we're still using city water. And so all of those concepts is that those items aren't a guarantee into 100 years from now. We're really needing to seriously look at what non-renewable resources we're using and all of that. And so we can't get there from today and tomorrow we're going to be, we're there. We're needing to keep working at it and and seeing if we can make a difference so that other folks who are watching and say, I could try doing that too. Or, I'd like to support you. I want to be a member, that kind of thing.
So, have any of these teaching seeds you've planted sprouted, do you think, yet?
Among some families, there's real enthusiasm. It isn't like, when you look out at CSAs around the metro area, they may have hundreds of members. We have 30 or 40. And so it isn't like the numbers say, whoa, you've made it. But I feel it's just real exciting how when folks come and they go, this is so wonderful, trying all these new things, and they'd never tried certain kind of vegetable before, and And some people having, that's a lot of vegetables that you get in a week. It's like a half a bushel for 2 people. And so if folks are used to eating meat and potatoes mostly, which is what most folks eat around here, and so now we're getting all these fruits and vegetables, well, those have to squeeze in somehow. And so many families have said, we're really eating much better now, and we're losing weight, and I've learned how to cook, and that to me is like, yes, that's that's the purpose for what we're up to here, is trying to make changes in a comfortable way and just opening doors to new ways of going about life. Yeah. So for sure. I've got, in terms of getting into schools, both schools, 3 schools around here purchased from us: the Wynnum School, the school here at Mount Lake, and the school in St. James. Nursing homes purchase, and who else? There must be some other wholesale accounts. And so that's also another area where we're seeing support from that, and they have a weekly order, and that makes that makes life simpler for us, is that I don't have to always phone and say, what do you want? It's like each week we're going to take this many cucumbers, tomatoes, etc., like that. And so they've really appreciated that too.
Any particular challenges working with institutions like schools and nursing homes, or does it kind of
schools
flow?
Take a whole summer off. So what's the challenge with that?
Yeah.
So, and then, to explain that is they take a vacation when everything's growing. And then when they come back into session, it's when everything is petering down. So that's a huge challenge. And so to have schools set up that way, I think why they were set that way is from years ago is, farmers had to have their kids at home, and so then they would teach them when they weren't needing to be in the fields, maybe, I'm not sure. Anyway, so our system is sort of a little off of, we gather all our kids into a building, and then there's nothing growing out in the fields around us. So how do we do that? So the challenge would be, well, we don't charge cheap for our vegetables, and public schools don't have a lot of money. I think someone told me they've changed the school program, and they're only offering 6 cents more for something. I'm not sure, so I don't know where that's going. But the point is, there isn't a lot of money to spend on fruits and vegetables. And fruits and vegetables, what we grow, aren't cheap. They are not cheap. We are trying. There's 3 of us working, trying to provide a salary for 1 person. And that's a huge challenge. So there isn't money in this area that folks are just, you usually are a farmer, and then you have your other job that helps support your farming habit, and that sort of has to switch, in that it takes a lot of energy and effort to provide decent fruits and vegetables. So how do you do that now when economy is in an issue and so forth? So back to schools, there isn't a lot of money for a school to say, hey, we'll buy all our tomatoes and all our cucumbers from you. They do the best they can, but we're still learning. And folks that aren't farmers and aren't used to purchasing local and in season, that's a huge switch. If you're used to just going to the grocery store and you're seeing broccoli there, or cauliflower, or beans, throughout the whole year, you're not aware of, well, when does it actually come due in your locale? It's completely different. And so a school menu is set up by folks who aren't that aware of what's coming due locally at that time and place in that area. And so to change all of that is going to take years, I would say. So we're taking one step at a time. It's sort of like we fit in. It isn't like the menu's built around, if I live in Alaska, is the menu built around that place? Is the menu built around what's available in Southwest Minnesota? One school called up and said, hey, you're going to have sweet corn. School doesn't start till the end of August, and they wanted sweet corn then. Well, I don't know if you saw on your way here, but drought, we've had a horrible year of sweet corn. I think sweet corn is all of this big this year. Our sweet corn, no water, the rains didn't come, the plants didn't get above my knees, there's no corn, and so it's like, no, sorry. So, a school still has that on their menu, so they'll probably find corn somewhere else, but we didn't have corn, yeah.
I wonder if you could return for a second to your days as a dietitian. How did it look from that standpoint, this business of feeding people in the schools? Were you working with the same schools you're supplying now? Or?
I just knew of our school here, Mount Lake.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I think schools, I don't know. I'm not working with it anymore, so I don't speak from a whole lot of authority. But the challenge is always is the bottom line, is the amount of money that's reimbursable, or that, yeah, we are not in, this area of the world is not a wealthy area. We're in a low poverty area, high poverty area. And so then there's just not money for a whole lot of extra things. And so to, how can I say, when one goes shopping, you don't necessarily buy, if you have 2 tomatoes and one costs 3 and one costs 1, you know, which one are you going to choose? Or whatever. You know, folks around here are very, very frugal, and so it isn't like, oh, well, they have, you know, they're growing organic, and so I'm going to go buy over there, and I know I'm going to be spending more. That's sort of a new concept. You don't get lots of people flocking here. So back on schools, it's the same thing, is that commodities, like I work in the food shelf, so not to pick on the school, but it's a similar kind of commodity kind of thing. So the commodities that we get in the food shelf, I'm assuming schools also get, and I'm not impressed. I don't think the government, I don't think our government, we're, I don't know where you're sending all this out to, but I don't think we care for people's health. I mean, big business, big agriculture is not, you know, is not in the same place it was years ago, where the farmer cared for what was happening. I think money's gotten in there, and it's just sort of made a big mess of things. And so you have these huge farms and huge, I mean, they're just like corporations unto themselves. And I just wonder, and I don't know a whole lot, but I'm not impressed looking from the outside and thinking that someone there is looking out for me. I don't think so. When I see planes spring, when I hear that, you know, spring, a certain field affected, somebody killed their tomatoes in their garden, I'm thinking, something's not right there. We're not paying attention to the land and the chemicals that we're putting on it. We're thinking more, we're following the big dollar. We're not caring for the land like we should. But that's nothing new.
So you've actually persuaded schools to buy vegetables that cost more than they could get other places.
Yes. They taste better.
And that's the argument. They taste better?
Well, they taste better and they are better. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't asked that question of them. But yeah, we sell our tomatoes for much more than, if you go to the grocery store, our tomatoes are more expensive, our cucumbers are more expensive. Is everything more expensive? It may or may not be. I don't know the price over there all the time. But but they know that there's going to be quality there, that our tomatoes aren't the kind that you can bounce on the ground and there's no damage to the tomato, that, you know, it's going to split. Same with the cucumbers. They're just awesome. Yeah. So, and I think also the schools have been, the tricky thing is that they're being encouraged to purchase local, and then they get a grant to purchase local with. So when those dollars disappear, I don't think that they're going to be able to support local so much, because it's the bottom line. They would be switching right back to commodities. So it hasn't switched enough that it's a level playing field here, because, and again, I don't know a whole lot, but because I don't have time to do much studying with farming, but I have a sense that there's a lot of, in the commodity department, when you grow fields and fields of corn, you're getting government dollars somehow. For commodity programs and all of that. For fruit and vegetable people like we are, there isn't anything. We have what we have. There's no other subsidy. There isn't anything else coming to help us out doing anything. And so this is is what it is. So, yeah, and the price that we're charging is more the true price. Whereas, you know, we don't have huge fields of cabbages or cauliflowers and we're driving our big tractors down and having, you know, sheep paid, you know, whatever. We're trying to, yeah, it's completely different. We're doing a lot more by hand. We're trying to be real careful with the amount of diesel and gas that we use. Just Saturday, we were given a field over here. We have 2 alfalfa fields that another farmer does, works it up, because they had been in a corn bean rotation and thus sprayed, and we wanted to get it away from that so that it could be organic. And so they've been 3 years now in alfalfa. And so we're wanting to be able to use some of that land. It is our land, but to convert it into fruit trees or vegetables or something. But anyway, back on Saturday, the farmer had forgotten that alfalfa and had gone to flower, so it was too late for him to bale and sell. And so he had known that we had wanted the alfalfa anytime. And so he said, "Say, I'll chop it if you want it." I go, "Sure, yeah, sure, we'll take the alfalfa." So on Saturday, it was just an awesome thing. I have never worked with alfalfa. I didn't grow up being a farmer. But I've seen movies of people out there with their pitchforks, you know, the old time movies. And people, you know, getting their bales and doing it all by hand. We don't have any animals, but anyhow. So we were out there with this flatbed, and here the alfalfa, you know, we're novices at this, but we have our pitchfork, and I was thinking I was going to have to go down all the rows and pitch all this alfalfa onto this trailer. And lo and behold, and folks probably know this, but the alfalfa just rolls up on itself like a snowball. And so, I mean, it was just beautiful. Like, there we were, you know, we were just out there with our muscles and all, and rolling up the alfalfa down the windrows, rolling it up, and then I had to take off with something else. But the rest of the family then pitched that onto it wasn't just pitching as you went down the windrow, but you had big snowballs of alfalfa around, and then that was put on the trailer. And I mean, that was just sort of fun. It was just like old-fashioned farming. And then we brought that over and are starting a windrow for composting. And then in our plot 7 behind here, on our high tunnel, we're going to try and do a new thing next year. Is we put all the alfalfa down, and it's about 1 foot thick now, and we put our tomatoes out in March or April of next year, depending on the weather. And so we're going to hopefully just leave the alfalfa there, and instead of tilling up the soil, because every time you till up the soil, you're messing around with all the little microbes in there, and you're messing around with the soil structure. So the less that you can till, the better. So we're trying to figure out, well, how do you do that with vegetables? So anyway, so we put this alfalfa on, and it's, you know, it's gonna go down. And I've never done this before, but I'm sure somebody has. And so it will diminish, and then in the spring, when we move the high tunnel over that, then we will plant our little tomato transplants right out in the alfalfa. And so, yeah, and so that will be a new thing, because usually we till it up and we put in our tomatoes. So we're hopefully going to not have to till that time. That's the hope. Yeah.
We were talking about schools a bit ago. You mentioned these grants to buy local. Is that what is now allowing the schools to buy your vegetables?
Correct.
So basically, unless you can somehow make the case during this time when they're growing local under the grant that this is a good thing to do, that market's going to dry up when the grant disappears?
Correct. It's always a good thing. We don't have a question of it's a good thing, but what's the bottom line?
Yeah.
I don't have money for it.
Yeah.
And so that's always an issue for us, is how we both have, my husband and I, we have our own jobs, but how do you make the business support the business? So that's its own thing. That's separate from what we do here. That's the business, and there's one person working for that business who's getting paid. But then there's 3 of us working, probably almost 3 full-time jobs, trying to keeping that working at it, trying to learn how to be more efficient. And so that's always my thing is, my goodness. And so what we're charging isn't too much if you figure that's taking 3 people to do this, unless we're being the most inefficient possible. But I don't think so. But it's a huge learning curve. So that's understandable. But and one has to purchase some things, and so your first years of a business, it's sort of hard to know in any business. But it's but yeah, the grant, it's a false positive. It's a false sense of security because there is no security. And so our prices are this. This is what we charge. We don't try to compete with what's coming from places south or east, west. This is what we need in order to have it be a viable business for a farmer to work on, and we aren't there yet, obviously. Mm-hmm. So yeah, whereas the nursing, the nursing home that purchased, those aren't grants, so it isn't all grants. But I think schools are under a real hard bind in that there isn't that much money for the cafeteria, for school lunch.
Well,
I mean, I think they get what is it they get? I don't know. They used to get like $2.64 per meal. That's pretty cheap. I mean, can you go out and buy a meal for $2? No, we can't. And so that's just squished down, and yeah, you don't have much choice there.
Have you got any ideas about, I mean, this seems like an unsolvable problem. The school can't afford your food. The grants come in to kind of give them a taste of what it would be like, but grants won't go on forever. Have you got any ideas about how to maintain the relationship to the schools apart from this artificial, false positive kind of funding?
Oh, I don't know. That's always our discussion here. I guess one could go at it in a variety of ways. Yeah, I don't know how to answer that. Part of me is, I volunteered a whole bunch of things. And I've had to quit all those other volunteer jobs in order to do this job. So what's wrong when I volunteered in all those other jobs? I'm still volunteering. I'm doing this farming, I'm volunteering. So I'm not answering your question, but it's always in my mind is, okay, I also make donations. I can donate money to the church. I can donate money to a whole bunch of other kinds of things for people to do the very thing that I'm doing here somewhere else, okay? It could be in another country, helping farmers XYZ. So what's so wrong with me doing that right here? So that's how I'm sort of surviving, thinking about my life at this point is, instead of me paying you, for example, to go far away and do the same thing over there, what's wrong with me trying to make a difference here and learning new things and trying to encourage people to eat differently and think more globally, and how I live here affects everyone around the world. That isn't something that you learn in a day. That's a generation change. And so I haven't answered your question, but I'm in it for the long haul. Yeah.
Do you think that way of thinking and teaching has a foothold in the schools?
In what do you mean by that?
In your schools. I mean, in your local schools.
What way of thinking?
A way of thinking that values where the food's coming from, that pays attention to the ethics of its growing, that integrates it into the
We're still working towards
plan.
That, I would say. Yeah. I haven't met a whole lot of people. I mean, a lot of folks feel that way. I don't mean to say that we're, I think we're still working on that, all of us, me included, to being aware of what I do affects not necessarily what's right in front of me, but it affects a whole bunch of other things.
So once you get the schools to teach ethics, your problem will be solved.
Yeah.
Had to toot my own horn a little
I'm
bit
not
here.
on the school board anymore, but that would really concern me. Like it would just bother me. In that, we had a what do you call them? A nutrition. What do you call them now? A food nutrition, a statement, not an ordinance. What do schools have? A policy. Okay. And so we're talking elementary school. We're talking tight budgets, tight budgets. Okay. And it's been tight ever since I was in there. It's been tight. I was on the school board 13 years. And it was tight the whole time. But tight has to be put aside at some point. And so I'm looking to the future. I'm not thinking about how tight things are. So is what I'm doing now going to affect me in the future? It sure is. And so when I first got on, I said, we need to be looking at what in the world we're feeding the kids. I'm fully aware that parents back home feed their kids, whatever they do. But we as a school community, we need to be doing it differently because it's for the future. And so, so where are we at 20 years later? We are at far worse diabetes. We're at far worse health kinds of issues. And so it's like, so now for the next 20 years, what are we going to do differently? That kind of thing. It's like, same thing can be said for the land, is what we're doing now might look okay, but 20 years from now, am I going to be happy with GMO crops, with spraying, with, whatever? Is that where I want to go with my world? No, it isn't. So let's walk down this other path and see if others will follow. But, it's a generational, our agribusiness, how long has that been? That's since World War II. Isn't that when things started changing and going differently? And so that's many years ago. It's going to take that many years to go differently, and I'm just way out here in the middle of nowhere and don't have a whole lot of other contact, whereas I think in other areas there's probably a lot more people that try and do things like we do, and they have more community and are able to talk with each other more. Yeah.
What kind of community do you have?
In terms of the farming?
Yeah.
Not much at this point, but that's probably my fault in that I'm just really busy. I start work at 6 or 7 in the morning and get to bed at 10 or 11. And so there's no time to sit around and talk like this much. Yeah. So it's in the winter months where I have free time to try and connect with folks.
Yeah. Worse backgrounds, though, in the winter.
Excuse me?
Worse backgrounds in the winter. You don't get this green stuff.
Yeah, right.
Well, we talked about schools a lot, but you also mentioned a connection to a nursing home. How's that going? How did it get set up? What reason do they have to buy the expensive tomatoes?
Yeah, well, I think they know quality, and I think last year there must be a client who really appreciates cherry tomatoes, and that's all she likes to eat, and so they like to buy that. And then the hospital in Windham gets cucumbers and tomatoes, so folks have that on their menu, and so they use it, yeah. But it's the price. Like iceberg lettuce coming from California, it's fields, acres, thousands of acres, because it was genetic. It's meant to be that way, and it's meant to be able to transport that way, just like any tomato or other vegetables that we see in the grocery store. And we've gotten used to that is what lettuce is. But if you think back to before iceberg lettuce, that's not what lettuce is supposed to be. Lettuce, there's whole bunches of kinds of lettuces and a variety of things that one can have in a salad. And so we need to make a mind change on that. But it comes with a cost, and we don't have a lot of extra money right now. And so, there's no easy answers. Mm-hmm. Junk food is cheaper than good food.
Mm-hmm. But at least a nursing home and a hospital have decided it's worth the extra money.
They get some of the stuff. Tomatoes and cucumbers. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Not the other odd things that we have. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, when we talked the last time, it was in the context of a grant report on a project to work with new immigrants. Mm-hmm. And now we're, a couple 3 years out from that. I'm curious, You were doing some pretty interesting things with new immigrants back in those days. What's happened with that? How are those relations?
Well, since I'm farming now, I haven't been able to keep up those relations daily or weekly. But when I pass friends, we know each other and we respect each other, and we'll talk a bit. The community garden there at the apartments is a thriving garden. I mean, I run by it on my runs each day, and they'll be out there in April already, and they keep working clear through. I mean, it's awesome just to see that, and the amount of food that comes out of there. Vegetables aren't planted in rows. It's just awesome to see how it's done, and there are little dikes around it. And so then when it rains, then the little dike can be switched, and then there's a place for the water to run out. And so it's very much set up on an Asian kind of farming system, much to the chagrin of the manager, because they're used to regular rainfalls every day. And so since we didn't have regular rainfall, they've been using a lot of city water, which isn't that necessary. One has to get used to not having monsoons all night. And so I'm sure their water bill is a little high. And it's like, I'm sorry, I don't know what to do with that. But so the manager will have to figure that out. But the garden is awesome, and people will go out there, especially the elderly farmers who know how to farm, and the little grandchildren will be out there, and other folks in town who know such and so has that garden plot. They're welcome to come and harvest too. And so it's just a real nice space, and we should have more space like that, but we don't. We do have another community garden by the Heritage Village, but that would mean that hasn't worked out so well, because that's a walk for everybody to get out there, and people don't own that as much as a space by their place of living. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So but that one took off. That's just been real exciting to see.
So this is an example of a grant-funded enterprise that didn't collapse when the grants went away.
That's right, and I went away. Yeah. That part of it really worked, and that garden came out of, we started community meetings in the apartment buildings, and so that was a new concept, and we had the children and I bought makings for picnic tables. So we got the wood and the metal pieces, and we made 2 picnic tables together. And so those picnic tables, if you go by, they're moved all over. They're used frequently. And then out of those meetings also came the need for garden space. So then that's my husband, we went there and tilled up the land and found out there was more interest, so we needed to till up more land. And then out of those meetings with the same grant was interest in having space for kids to play, and so then there's also a basketball hoop there. So those have worked for the grant. Some of the other things sort of went by the wayside, but those were very helpful.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious how you would manage a little foundation if you had one. I mean,
I do have one.
Tell me about how you manage it. I mean, what I mean is, where you're investing money that can't go on forever in things that can't keep being invested for 30, 40 years, like the startup money for healthy foods in the schools, or the startup money for the community garden, where you're investing that way. Given what you're interested in out here, where does it make sense to put that seed money, do you think?
Well, we do have, my husband and I do have money in the Southwest Initiative Foundation. So in a sense, we have a Harder fund in the foundation. I don't know if that's what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. So we have, in our giving, we feel very important that it's, and this is probably off the subject, but folks give heavily to church kinds of things, and that's well and good and wonderful. But we feel real strongly like this community has been a huge giver of missionaries and all sorts of things through the church. But then if one looks at the community, it's like, but not much of that stayed here in the community. It all went. And you can harvest from the ground a couple years, and when you put your tomato in there after 3 years of never having put any nutrition back in the ground, you don't have much of a tomato plant, okay? And so the same thing goes with financial or whatever, that this is a community, whatever community we're in, but this is the community I'm in. So we felt real important that, yeah, okay, a lot of our money, we can say half and half. Half goes to elsewhere in the world, but some needs to stay here and support what's here. And it may not necessarily be church work, whatever that means, but often much of donations, because we've worked overseas with church, money that goes elsewhere doesn't necessarily go to, I mean, people give money here to start community, people give money to have mission workers start community gardens in other countries. It could also be done right here, and why isn't it? That's my question. Church groups can send their youth off to Chicago and Denver to do rehabilitation in some whatever. Why isn't that also done here in our own little town? And it hasn't been done. And so those are the issues. So when we've started up a family fund, our fund then is for local kinds of happenings that we perceive as being important. So we've given money to a variety of things locally, and so there is money there under our Harder Fund for Mount Lake stuff, and then we do other stuff elsewhere. Yeah. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah. So imaginably, some fund or other could continue subsidy for healthy fruits and vegetables in the schools.
Well, I've thought of that. I've thought about giving, from our foundation, is giving money to the school to purchase local. But, yeah, one could do that. But then you have that false sense of, well, what are they doing? Well, in a sense, the government's giving money to the school. So that would be an interesting discussion to have. Is the schools get money from elsewhere? They get money from my taxes, they get money from the government, from the state, from whatever. So it's funding. The school isn't earning its money. So then what is so wrong with people in town, be that me or whomever, giving money to the school to purchase locally? Not just from me, there's other farmers around here. So why wouldn't that be something that would be, wow, wouldn't that be neat? I haven't done it yet, because I'm thinking, well, is that a false positive, or is that something that community members could do, is saying, yeah, I want to give you a couple $1,000 and you're to purchase your honey, your meat, your vegetables. That money, a couple $1,000 won't go very far, because, there's many hundreds of kids to feed. But wouldn't that be a neat thing, is to start the wheels turning, and so that folks learn that, oh yeah, honey just comes down the road, pork's over there, beef's over there, yeah. I don't know. Have thought about it, haven't done it yet.
When I talk to farmers, a lot of farmers, I get one recurring theme. They really hope their kids will come back.
Oh, yeah.
They want to pass their operation on to somebody. Even if they don't much like their operation, they want to pass it on. It's funny. You actually got a kid to come back.
Yeah, he's come back, but I'm not sure if he's going to be happy here or not. He's not very, and I don't like to speak for him, but it's hard for a young person to come back, which has all been written about. Everybody knows that. So, okay, so imagine I'm a young person, I come back, and I'm thinking this way, and all around me is completely opposite to what I'm wanting to do and think. And so can I survive in that situation? That's the hard thing. I mean, we're about trying to, well, for example, we finally got past, we're able to have bees on our property. Okay, we're in town. This is rural Minnesota. We are surrounded, and I've said it before, but we are surrounded by, from my point of view, everything around here. Fortunately, we have a buffer all around, but everything is sprayed up and down the street, and all the corn and beans that you see everywhere is sprayed except for this little piece right here. That bothers me greatly. I think we've been blindfolded and thinking that, you know, all is safe. I've heard people say you can wash, take a bath and round it, whatever, you know, whatever it is, I don't believe it, because anyway, we'll leave it there. And so, okay, I'm coming back and I'm one person and I'm going to plunk myself down in the middle of all of this and think I'm going to make a difference and be able to survive. And I'm also a person who's wanting to say, whoa, you guys, we're using too much gas and too much diesel. We need to just say, whoa, 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 and be aware of, you know, the amount of water we're using, the amount of fuel we're using, non-renewable resources, in the schools, in our workplaces, in our city government, wherever. You know, where is the discussion? There is no discussion. And so if I'm feeling like, you know, nobody's listening, I don't know that this is the place to come and settle down. We're working on trying to get a few chickens. Well, there's an ordinance against chickens. And so, again, we've got these 20 acres and we're on the edge of town. And so, we got bees. We finally got bees, and there's a couple hives over there, and they're making honey, 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 because we have raspberries and buckwheat and all sorts of things that, you know, we have things blooming all around all the time. And they're making lots of honey. But okay, so now we want some chickens. And we're not planning to build a huge, you know, chicken barn and sell thousands of chickens, but we're wanting some chickens. And so, you know, that has to go through the whole city, and people are upset or not wanting chicken feathers and da-da-da-da-da. And so, if we're needing to think, okay, I'm living here, where is my food coming from? Like, Peter, where's your food coming from? Where's your food coming from? Is it coming from around me, or is it coming from far away where the chicken feathers can be? Like, it should be coming from around us, and we shouldn't hear all this truck traffic going by us so much. We should be more sustainable. It would be my point of view. So, yeah.
You were starting out talking about the difficulty of a kid coming back.
Yeah, so if I have all those points of view as a young person, and I come and plunk myself down in this kind of environment, I don't know that I'm welcomed with open arms. My ideas, they're just, you know, they're too far out, and so that's the difficulty. So, yeah. So it's been nice to have our son come and join us. He also got married 2 weeks ago, right here behind us. And so that's been real fun, mostly. But whether it's for the long term, we aren't real sure yet. I'm not moving anywhere. I'm not sure that he's going to stay around.
Well, I hope at a later time when things aren't so busy to get a chance to talk to him. But in the meantime, how's he? If you could just tell us a little, how's he thinking about this project? I mean, how's he thinking about coming back to the home place after being in Bolivia? And what ideas are moving?
Well,
up?
he's let's see. He'd have to speak for himself, but he's more into permaculture. If you're familiar with that. And I'm not real familiar. I haven't had time to read the books he's wanted me to read. So the idea, the concept I get with permaculture is, and again, I haven't read anything, but that there needs to be a reason more than just one for how things are placed in your yard. So if you've got your house, and then what's directly around your house is zone 1, and that should be what you use the most and need the most, and zone 2 is you pattern your yard or your place that you exist in that manner. And then you look at the water and how that flows, and you look at, you know, and so you look at the sun, you're just aware of creation and how things are set, if that makes sense. So, okay, so, you know, this is already built and our trees in certain positions, and so he had wanted to cut down a whole bunch of trees, and it's like, no, I'm not cutting down all those trees. You know, give me time to understand this. And so, you know, so that's sort of a difference of opinion. The other thing is, if something's planted in a certain place, why is it there? And I've not had to think about, well, why am I putting this here? You know, give me 3 reasons. No, I usually just sort of, well, this is where I'm planting. And so it's more in-depth kind of to understand the flow of life and how it all relates to each other. So And it's not that I'm contrary, but it's just a new way, it's a different way of looking at life and farming.
So the farm's becoming a negotiation exercise.
Yeah.
We got maybe 3 minutes to wrap up. I'm curious about your 10-year plan here.
10-year plan.
I mean, you may not have one, but if you do have one, I'd be curious what it is.
A 10-year plan. Well, we hope to still be here. My husband and I feel like we are, we're pushing 60, but we feel like, well, you never know what's going to come the next hour. One could die, but we feel full of energy. I've got aches and pains, but we feel like, we've got 10, 20 more years of viable, that we could be, active, sort of. Our energy level is going down, but we can do something here that would be meaningful. And so we're hoping to stay and be able to work here. We're hoping to have something that's, that we're able to enjoy, and each night we go to bed feeling like, that was a good night. Yeah, I like the concept of CSA. We had hoped to be able to move an older 1800s building in and have I'm needing a vegetable preparation area, and we're needing coolers and such, because right now we're just working on my kitchen sink. So it needs to be something that large quantities of things can come in easily. We have a hard time getting through the little door, and so we need that space. So we've talked about doing some building, either over there or back in there. Some trees need to come down, and the point is trying to think where best to situate that in relation to our water, in relation to the lay of the land, and that kind of thing. So we're wanting to build a few buildings so that we can be a bit more efficient in our time management. Yeah. Other than that, just to keep working on folks. We attempted a little bit in the farm market, but I'm not real impressed with the farm market personally, and that I have to go sit there and hope somebody buys a few things from me, and that, I don't know, I don't really enjoy that. Whereas I enjoy a CSA more, where people come and they're scheduled to come, and I know how much to grow and I know how much to harvest for them. So we're hoping that can continue to maintain and maybe grow a little bit. We don't have a lot of population out here, so we aren't looking for hundreds, but it would be good to have, I mean, wouldn't it be neat if, say, the nursing home thought of, oh yeah, they could get a share each week, and then we deliver that share, or that kind of thing. Wouldn't that be fun? But we'll see. We've also looked at, it would be neat to have more of a connection with the school. But just we aren't there yet, because this has been a new year, having our son join us and all this different thing. But it would be neat to have, schools do make visits here, and it would be nice to have more of a connection with youth, with even the agriculture class, in order to present a different outlook, because all of us eat, and so where's your food coming from, and how is it affecting the world? Yeah, what are your choices? What are you doing in that area?
Thanks for your time.
You're welcome.